Perfect. Thanks very much for being with us. We will begin with the side event. Pitch and Connect, Sustaining an Abundance of Forest Ecosystem. This is the SAFE initiative. This is an initiative that has been that is being supported by the government of Korea. The UN Environment Program is very, very grateful to the government of Korea for this support, and actually it's a really good project, and it's bringing really material results to the places we are working on it. So we will start. Tadeusz from here he is. He will help me with the run of presentations and slides. So please, Tadeusz, next slide. And with this, we will have the remarks of Ms. Hyunsoo Lee. She is from the Korea Forest Service, and the Korea Forest Service has been a pivotal partner in giving support to this project. Tadeusz, we start with the remarks.
Good afternoon. I'm Hyunsoo Lee, the Director of the International Cooperation Division at the Korea Forest Service. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the United Nations Environment Program's Sustaining an Abundance of Forest Ecosystem SAFE team for organizing this event with the Korea Forest Service. I also express my appreciation to our active cooperating countries, Bhutan, Cambodia, Laos PDR, and Vietnam, and the implementation organization, Asian Forest Cooperation Organization, AFCO. The Sustaining an Abundance of Forest Ecosystem initiative is the first collaborative project between the Korea Forest Service and the United Nations Environment Program. It was developed as an outcome project of the 15th World Forest Congress held in Korea in 2022 and officially launched in 2023. It supports the restoration of forest ecosystems in biodiversity hotspot regions, which are rich in biodiversity but threatened by human activities. In addition, since such ecosystem restoration requires cooperation with local community, the Sustaining an Abundance of Forest Ecosystem initiative supports local income enhancement through community-led forest restoration, protection, and monitoring. We now face an unprecedented environmental crisis, including climate change and biodiversity loss at the moment. And forests are being highlighted as a nature-based solution to resolve these issues. The Republic of Korea has experienced several crises caused by forest degradation in 1950s after the Korean War. At the moment, heavy rains frequently caused landslides, damaged farmland, and reduced food production during the deforested period. By restoring healthy forest ecosystems, Korea was able to achieve economic development as well. It was attributed to strong government policies and hands-on support of all citizens. Therefore, Korea has been trying to share its successful forest greening experience with the international community and contribute to solving global environmental problems through forests. Especially this year, the Korea Forest Service has launched valuable and healthy forests for all strategies as sustainable forest management in order to enhance the role of forests to better address climate change issues. The Sustaining an Abundance of Forest Ecosystem initiative will support international efforts towards solving planetary crises such as the UN DESA on ecosystem restoration and Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. And it is contribute to achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals, climate change mitigation, adaptation through protecting terrestrial ecosystems. Finally, in order to achieve healthy forests and earth, we need to take our action and scale up to restoration and conserve forests in the world. Therefore, please give your solid support, all of you. I would like to thank you for joining us at the side event of Sustaining an Abundance of Forest Ecosystem initiative. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker online. No, present here. Tyrell, thanks so much for being with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity for the CBD Secretariat to speak to you today. So forests are essential. I don't think anyone can argue against that. Under the CBD, we have the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, which has set out ambitious action-oriented targets that need to be met by 2030 if we're going to achieve the longer-term vision of putting us on track to living in harmony with nature by 2050. The achievement of the GBF is fundamental for achieving the Paris Agreement, for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, for achieving a number of other international commitments that countries have signed up to. But it's not just because of international commitments. It's about the fundamental need that the importance of healthy ecosystems underpinning our lives, our health, our well-being, our economic and social systems. And that is increasingly being recognized now, both politically as well as within other sectors, including the private sector and others. Forests themselves obviously play a very important role within the discussions here under UNFCCC, and there's been a lot of attention put on their role within mitigation. And increasingly now looking at issues relating to adaptation and thinking in particular the ecosystems target under the global goal of adaptation. Under the CBD, the importance of forest ecosystems has been highlighted perhaps throughout the entire life of the convention, not least because some of the major biodiversity hotspots coincide with major forest systems around the planet, but also because forests themselves for many people demonstrate what nature is. It's a tangible thing for those who perhaps see beautiful wildlife more as things on our television screens or whatever. If you come from certain parts of the global north, it's the realization that actually that forest, that woodland that was over there, that perhaps is not there anymore, was our sort of tangible link to nature. Within the CBD, there's been a lot of focus within the GBF more specifically, there's been a lot of focus on Target 3, on the protected areas and other effective forms of area-based conservation management. This idea of 30 by 30, protecting 30% of land, water and marine systems, ecosystems by 2030. But actually Target 2, just before that one, is on restoration, which is also a 30 by 30, and that is potentially even more important than the Target 3 protected areas target, because ultimately it's not just about the protection of healthy ecosystems, but recognizing the extent to which we need to sustainably manage and restore those areas that we have already degraded, that we continue to degrade, and even within protected areas that we do not manage as effectively as we should. Around forests, there are a number of initiatives. Our esteemed guest from Korea mentioned the Forest Ecosystem Restoration Initiative, which is a key one that is in collaboration with the government of Korea as well as the CBD Secretariat, and that has played a very important link in raising the profile of both forest ecosystems as well as restoration among parties under the convention. One other thing that I want to mention is we just had our 16th meeting of the COP, our COP16, just a couple of weeks ago in Cali, Colombia. And it focused very much on what parties, what governments and other actors are doing in terms of achieving or implementing what they have committed to under the GBF. And so it was an initial stock take, looking at some of the initial national targets that have been set relative to the global ones, those initial national biodiversity strategies and action plans, and the extent to which they are sufficiently ambitious in order to help us achieve these global goals. But there were a number of other actions and decisions that were taken and undertaken in Cali. One was there was a first ever Forest and Water Day within the KMGBF Pavilion, in which a number of restoration activities were launched. And there's been a strong linkage between what happened in Cali in that particular pavilion and this one here in UNFCCC. Also, in terms of linking the conventions more broadly, there has been a request, a call from parties looking for asking and mandating an exchange of technical or an exchange of ideas on a technical level of how we can actually synergize across the 3 Rio conventions and the biodiversity related conventions over the course of the coming 12 months, in particular leading into COP30 in Belém, where we keep talking about synergies. I think, well, certainly from the CBD side, we've been hearing lots about this idea of synergies. What does that actually mean? And what is the role that the secretariats play, the UN system, civil society, but of course governments, and thinking about it at a multi-scale level. So at the international level, regional, national, and then of course subnational, because we need to be taking a whole of society, whole of government approach. It needs to be localized because these issues aren't siloed when you get down to the local level. We need to be bringing those local level voices up into national level policy, but then also the actions, the commitments that are made both at the international and national level, bring in local level actors and engage fully and effectively at all levels. Thank you very much.
Thanks. I'd like now to give you a very brief introduction to the SAFE project, the basics of what the project is doing. With that, Tadeusz, next slide. Well, the SAFE initiative will cover the period of 2023 to 2030, and the main thrust behind this project is to work with local communities, make that connection that Tristan was mentioning, and bringing both the mitigation and the non-carbon benefits, as we call them, together into place. And next slide, Tadeusz. With the generous contribution of the Korean government, we work in these countries: Bhutan, Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. And basically, this project combines on the ground these 3 things. One is support to communities taking the driving seat in deciding what type of activities we want to do in forest, and having income and conservation hand by hand. And with doing this kind of work, there are also things that also come into consideration. They provide capacity to the communities that live in these places. And this is, for example, the enhanced local capacity and frameworks for restoration techniques, there are many ways to do restoration. Some work better than others depending on where you are, and some are more effective than others, and this is what SAFE also does. And incubation, making a living out of conservation, is also key. So SAFE has a particular focus and a substantial share of resources into the incubation of economic activities, startups, businesses that bring these two things together, conservation and income generation. The importance of a project like SAFE is that there are we will need to combine part of the conservation of tropical forests will come, yes, from keeping some areas as pristine as possible, but a good number of hectares will actually have to have that alignment, that coexistence between income generation and conservation. They may not be as pristine as other tracts of forest, but in a matrix of conservation areas and areas that continue to function and produce ecological benefits, while at the same time allowing communities for income generation. It is that matrix, that composition that we will probably see as a predominant characteristic of rural landscape as we try to achieve this, again, what Tristan was saying, this this coexistence with nature. And SAFE is also important because we really need to scale up this type of initiatives by a couple of orders of magnitude. There are no scenarios by 2050 in which you attain net zero without a strong contribution from nature in terms of carbon removals. It's just not possible. Either we have this in addition to other things, or the numbers don't add up and we overshoot 3 degrees. So let me move then, let us move now, Tadeusz, to what will be the pitching part of this side event, and with that I would like to invite to the front well, let me introduce also Katrina. Katrina is our head of communications. Katrina, you will moderate this part of the event, but I was just inviting the speakers to come to the panel. So with that, Kinley, Eric, Noriaki, if you can come and occupy the front row. So I'll briefly introduce. We have Eric Johnson, Forest Products Association of Canada. We have Kinley Dem from Bhutan. And we also have Mr. Noriaki Sakaguchi from the Japanese Cooperation Agency. Katrina, with that, over to you.
Thank you, Gabriel, and welcome to our panelists. Now we move on to the exciting part of this session, the pitching and connecting part. We've heard about the key elements of the SAFE initiative. We've heard about the big picture, the connections with biodiversity, with community, the climate benefits as well of restoration. Now we want to hear from our partners, from people who are on the ground, who are really doing this restoration work, what they think, and how do all of these elements connect with each other, and share example of how these can be visualized, not just on a small scale, but also on a bigger scale. So let's start with Ms. Kinley Dem from Bhutan. Ms. Kinley Dem, can you share with us, Bhutan is a beautiful country. We've seen you have amazing forests, and mountains and all these beautiful landscape that all of us would just be dreaming of going. But restoration is as well a big part of your NDCs and your climate goals. Can you share with us how now this SAFE initiative connects with your bigger climate goals and with special focus on communities as well? Thank you.
I think I don't look like the picture here. I think that's AI doing the work. She works with one of the ecological society in Bhutan, so she's equally involved in restoration, so I don't mind. Bhutan, maybe a little context to people who have never been to or have limited knowledge in Bhutan. So we are a very small country, a cover negative country. We have 69% forest cover, 69.71. And we have around 52% of the country area under protected area system. So people, when you usually talk about restoration, people ask why restoration? You are a carbon negative country. We remove more than 3 times we emit. Why restoration? Why landscape restoration? Why any other conservation work? Even people at home, they, as a forester, we are often made to answer these questions. So. But then the Bhutan, as a mountainous country, we are vulnerable to a lot of climate change, impacts from climate change. We have risks from glacial lake outburst floods. We have forest degradation. We have when you talk about forest degradation, we have risks from pest and disease, forest fire. A lot of forests are being degraded. We have. And like I mentioned, we have a risk of glacial lake outburst flood because we have so many glacial lakes, so many waters. But then we have shortage of drinking water problem. We have shortage of irrigation water because of which we need to manage our watersheds. We have a lot of other problems as well with regards to agroforestry, the implementation on the ground as well. So when we think about our development goals, our targets, one of the main targets we have is restoration. So in order to overcome our challenges, we need to do restoration, and we need to restore our the limited land we have from the forest areas and for the arable land. Another irony would be we are a community dependent on agriculture, but we have only 7% arable land. So and we need to make best use of our land in order to gain from the environment. So that's where nature-based solution comes in. That's where things like restoration comes in. And even if you see our, in Bhutan, we have these 5-year plans. Right now, we are in a 13th 5-year plan. The SAFE project, the UNEP and KFS SAFE project it was very timely at the sense that we were developing the 13th 5-year plan. And it was one of the targets that we could add up to our ongoing target for the restoration. It is part of the NDC. Our NDC says that we need to remain carbon neutral at all times. Our sequestration is increasing, but so is the emission. We are a developing country. We need to develop. But so in that way, the restoration activities help in increasing our carbon sink, carbon sink, and it's also an integrated part of the NBSAPs. So in Bhutan, everything is integrated together in the development goals. It's in the NBSAPs, NDCs. So it's really, like I mentioned, very timely. The SAFE project, SAFE KFS and UNEP SAFE project, we have in Bhutan. As part of the project, we also did the mapping of the degraded land. So we found out that there are certain areas that we need a lot of such restoration activities, but we prioritized according to the project. And we have identified 4 sites in a community forest. In Bhutan, because we have more than 80-90% are state reserve forest land. So in order to have community involved, we need to do it in a state reserve forest land. So we have community forests. We involve the communities and do restoration in that area. For now, we have developed the implementation plan, and unlike the other countries, we started a year late. So we have just developed the implementation plan, and we would be starting from next year, the project as such. It is very important for us, but I think there are some things that can be improved. The project is from 2023 to 2020, but restoration projects and forest-based, nature-based projects is unlike other projects. For example, 1 year is spent on planning and doing everything. The trees doesn't get on the ground. And then we are only left with 5-6 years. So what we do is I work for the Forest Monitoring and Information Division. So we have this monitoring evaluation guidelines. So we do annual monitoring. And at the third year, we do midterm evaluation of the restoration, like plantation, for example. And the fifth year, final restoration. Based on the results from the evaluation process, then we get to do interventions. But by the time we implement the intervention, the project gets finished. So most of the time, it is upon the communities and the government to keep the project going and have the objective of the government fulfilled. The project's objective will be fulfilled. It's to restore this much plant. But what next? In order to motivate the communities, in order to have them involved, I think it's really important to have a bigger goal. And maybe you could look for other, maybe you could extend the project, or maybe look for other partners in order to keep the project going. But having said that, really grateful for UNEP and KFS. We have collaborated before. KFS has also been part of the Apokut project, and we have two similar projects going on in Bhutan. But then I think there are certain things important for us. For example, like I mentioned, the sustainability, then integration in the plants. It's already done in Bhutan. And also advocacy and capacity building of the local communities. Right now, they are told how to plant trees, but they also, if we need to involve the communities, if we need to encourage the communities, we also need to enhance the capacity in other things rather than apart from the restoration. So I think you need to keep that involved as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those insights, Ms. Kenley. And I mean, from what you've just said, everything in Bhutan is also integrated. You have a lot of forests, and also a lot of the work is community driven. That makes it sustainable in the long run. Now let's move on to not exactly your neighbor, but your seatmate there, to Canada. We've heard in the news about these increasing threats of forest fires to Canada, and also to a lot of the ecosystems worldwide. And this makes the role of restoration even more important. So let's hear from Eric Johnson of the Forest Products Association of Canada to share his thoughts on how private companies as well could help communities and governments in these critical efforts to restore ecosystems devastated by fires.
Thanks, Katerina. Absolutely fascinating to hear your talk. In Canada, just to give you a sense of sort of the size and scale and scope, we have 367 million hectares of forest in Canada, and that's about 10%, well, 9% of the world's forest. Much of that is a forest that uses a fire cycle to regenerate itself, and so for millennia, fire was moving through the landscape on a small scale, regenerating and recycling that forest. Our forests tend to be about a 40 to 140 year, give or take a decade in terms of its life cycle, and we either use it or lose it. And Canada's been really, really good over the last 70 years or so at putting out our fires. So we will go in and water bomb and make sure that they don't spread. And what that has done is accumulated a massive fuel load within and around communities and in our forests. And so what we're seeing today is forests that are hotter, larger, bigger, and more dangerous to our communities. They're burning at a scale that is degrading the soils, and in some cases coming through twice before forests get to a point where they can actually regenerate themselves. And so there really is opportunity for industry, communities, indigenous peoples, both economic and just participation opportunities to go in and help these forests regenerate themselves. With planting, Canada does have a 2 billion tree program, so in and above what industry does, the government is looking to plant 2 billion trees across the nation over a time scale. And so, there's quite a bit of work that we can do there, and it's incredibly important for Indigenous communities to be a part of that, and for their knowledge and for their culture to be a part of forest management. It's one thing to restore post-fire, it's another to mitigate these fires. And so we've learned over the course of the last few decades that, remembering those millennia before us that managed these landscapes with fire and reintegrating cultural burnings, cultural thinnings, mechanical thinnings, and so on. One of the things that I advocate for back home is to be looking at this not only from a forest health but also a people health perspective. So, a public safety perspective. There are ways that we can manage, our communities that live within forests or near forests through building fire breaks, so we have a public safety, ability to save some of these towns. But making that fiber economic, providing the right incentives for industry to be able to go in and do that work at scale is really important. And so, the more we can do that, the more we can go in and manage our forests. The easier they are to restore in the long run. The healthier they are, the more we have healthy biodiversity and healthy forests forever. And so, it's really important that government, industry, communities, and Indigenous peoples can work together and find solutions that can integrate and scale to keep Canadians' forests as healthy as possible. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Eric. This has also been very enriching, and thank you for sharing with us how also the focus is not just restoring forests after fire, but also mitigating future forest risks together with the Indigenous communities and making sure community involvement is there along with the investments. Now we move on to our last pitch coming from Japan. We're excited to hear from Mr. Noriaki Sakaguchi from JICA. Mr. Noriaki, could you share with us, we know that you're also working across different countries on mangrove restoration. How do these connect with the forest restoration in terms of the particular benefits to biodiversity, climate mitigation, and adaptation?
Okay, now, okay. Thank you for inviting me. And so let me introduce about the mangrove restoration. So slide, please. Now, okay. Sorry, not here. Okay, thank you. So next slide, please. So mangrove provides contribute to climate change mitigation and adaptation, and also other multiple ecosystem services or benefits. And so looking at the mitigation, so mangrove ecosystem stores much higher carbon in below ground than terrestrial forest. 85 to 90% of total carbon is stored underground, below ground. And so looking at adaptation, sediment trap and accretion function of mangroves protect coastal lines from sea level rise and coastal abrasion. So these figures is the soil accretion rate in different mangrove habitats. And the average accretion rate in mangrove are higher than the sea level rise rate between 1993 and 2010, 3.2 millimeter per year, and also enabled to address sea level rise rates projected by IPCC 1.5 and 2.0 scenario. Next slide, please. And mangrove also contribute to the disaster risk reduction and livelihood enhancement. And so tsunami reduction effect was analyzed by field survey and modeling on 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami in Band Aceh by Japanese researchers. As a result, tsunami height is effectively reduced by mangroves compared without mangroves. And also mangrove contributes livelihood enhancement for communities. Through the providing fishery and tourism resources. These figures are estimated economic value for fisheries and tourism. Next slide, please. And so But so there are challenges for the restoration, ensuring multiple benefits, such multiple benefits. There are challenges. So the trade-off among those benefits might occur if not only the focusing on the only carbon, it causes might cause biodiversity loss or the negative impact on communities, and also sustainable management by local community with livelihood generation is essential. So we held a mangrove side event at the COP16 CBD in Cali, Colombia. And we identified key points for ensuring multiple benefits in the restoration. And one is a quantitative evaluation on multiple services. And also second is a technical and institutional guideline or the regulations to guide the project design and implementation proper way. And also third is a community-based sustainable management with their income generation. If we ensure not only carbon and also these biodiversity and coastal protection and livelihood, we can generate high quality carbon. I mean the carbon plus non-carbon benefits, and it can scale up the restoration by financing from private sector. Next slide, please. And so JICA has been conducting the cooperation project in 10 countries for mangrove conservation. Especially we have a long history with Indonesia. Since 1992, we rehabilitated degraded mangrove forest and also established a mangrove information center in Bali. And also those results or the outputs extend to ASEAN regions. And currently, next slide, please. We are now preparing with the Indonesian government the project on strengthening capacity of sustainable management of mangrove for ecosystem-based adaptation to climate change. It's composed of the capacity building using mangrove information center and also the enhanced scientific basis, evaluating the carbon stock and also adaptation and other ecosystem services. And also, we developed the model for rehabilitation and sustainable management with income generation for communities such as shiro fisheries and ecotourism. So throughout these activities, we believe to contribute the Indonesian policies, 600,000 hectares of the restoration of mangroves, and also promote sustainable management with income generation for the communities and achieve NDC 2030 target. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Noriaki, and thank you for sharing the triple benefits of mangrove restoration, looking at the biodiversity co-benefits, climate and community and livelihoods. It's also a great reminder for all of us here to know that restoration offers so much more than carbon benefits, right? And as you mentioned, it's also important to consider the trade-offs and the balance between all of these multiple benefits. And we really like the fact that you added the scientific dimension, like adding the modeling, carbon stack assessment, and how these all play a key role in understanding and measuring this outcome. So it's good to see all the big picture where we see the necessity for community involvement, for private actors, for indigenous people, and for the scientific community and government to all come together to accomplish this great task. A very, very big thank you to all of our speakers today for bringing all of your wonderful and insightful perspectives. And your insights have been truly appreciated and enriched this session. Thank you very much and have a good day to all of you.
Thank you very much for being with us. Thank you to the speakers. And I would like then to close this side event with, again, a genuine thanks to the Korean Forestry Service, to the Korean government for the support provided to this program. Thank you for being with us.